Hello! How you doing? Ah, been waiting a year to try to find these buckles again. They're solid brass and super beefy and totally indestructible. So I had my buddy find them. So I ordered 100 of them. You know why a quality leather belt costs so much? Because the belts you buy in retail stores aren't quality. I'm feeling like, why is a belt $100? I'll give you a prime example. You see this leather roll back here? There's absolutely nothing finer for making a belt. Absolutely nothing. It's 11 ounce, which is a thickness grade. And that roll cost me $650. There's only so many belts you can get out of that roll, and the roll cost me, and these cost me $6 a piece, so it's like, why does a quality belt cost so much? Unbelievably, it actually takes a long time to make a quality belt. Trust me, I'm getting to the point of this video here really quick. By the way, my buddy had a white medium thickness, which is really hard to find on a buckskin. They're usually very lightweight. They're very tough, but usually very thin. And I made this, and I put the pentagram design on there because I thought somebody would like it. Pythagorean pentagram, okay, by the way? That's where it came from. Pythagoras. Don't make any assumptions. So there's only ever going to be one, and I made this yesterday, and even hand-painted that on there. It's a medieval backpack. Each seam is double sewn. So let me know if you're interested in it. I've only got one. There's only ever going to be one. I've very rarely ever seen white buckskin. Very rarely. I can't believe I found these buckles again. Yeah, get to the point of the video. I know. I'm going. So sorry. But that's why a quality belt actually costs so much. You just let me know if you're interested in that bag. I like making those bags because I made so many of them. They don't take a super duper long time to make. They do take a while though. This is where everybody's confused, and the GOVT, every GOVT is famous for this. When they don't want you to know something, they dazzle you over here like a child. Like when you don't want a child to see or realize something, it's like, here's a piece of candy. Look over here, yay! Don't look over there. Look over here. Distraction and subterfuge. Everybody's confused. And of all the people that like ask the big questions, you know, like whatever sort of thing it is, it's like fringe. You know, somebody shows up and they're asking about Bigfoot or, you know, the gray aliens or, you know, what's the other one? Lizard people. That's craziness. Like, the questions that people want to ask, you know, the secret files from the GOVT, this is never it. This is their big secret. You're like, get to it. I'm getting to it here very quickly, but just think about that for a second. Whenever you have somebody ask the president a question, talk about, you know, the files of JFK or gray aliens or Apollo, Stanley Kubrick, in association with that. Absolutely everything, but nobody asks questions like this. They don't. What's the big one that they don't want you to know about? And it really answers a whole lot of questions, and nobody talks about this. It's free energy. People speculate about grays and alien this and alien. It's all a psyop. It's a distraction. They would much rather release footage of like a gray. You'll have humanity talking like a real high definition video. It could be AI generated, right? Of gray aliens parading through the woods from their flying saucer. And then the government would say, yeah, this footage is confirmed. It was taken by Staff Sergeant so-and-so on military base so-and-so. And humanity would talk about nothing for 5 years nonstop. And if we ever get that close on free energy, this is exactly something the government's going to do. It's all a distraction. It's all a subterfuge. This is a fact. There's countless video footage of it. You can see it everywhere. I think it's on the divider between the lit surface and the shadow side of the moon. And this is the reason why it all actually gets back to this. And this isn't the important thing. This isn't the big secret. We actually have lunar bases and Martian bases. People have been saying now, and I've visited NASA many times, that NASA is a front, kind of like a Hollywood set. You ever seen when they actually film Hollywood sets? You could tell it's like filmed in Midtown America, but you could see that the city is 100% fake. It's never been lived in. It's completely fake. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, it is fake. It absolutely is fake. But they want us to be concerned with these things that don't matter. They'd much rather us talk about aliens. They don't want us to know about free energy. Free energy generators for nearly limitless possibilities. And I'm just going to go over some of the things that nobody ever talks about, and they're the big considerations, actually. I don't know if you know this or not, by the way. Lightsabers, they don't actually terminate at like 3 or 4 or 5 feet in front of you, but lightsabers already exist. There are countless videos like that. The only limitation is that the power supply is about the size of a Volkswagen. So you can't carry it on your hip. You know, you can't carry it in your pocket. Since free energy is scalable, this means we could actually have a free energy device that would fit in your pocket, and the possibilities would be limitless. You'd only ever need one. That's all anybody would ever need. You could take it from your car to your house and back and forth. EM pulse kinetics exist. We already actually have these on tanks. For testing, I don't think they're past the prototype stage, but I could be wrong. We've actually tested these already on battleships. The limitation is the size of the power source. And once again, the power source, how do you power it? There's the power source, and then there's what the power source has to be powered off of. You think the government is afraid of kinetic technology? You think they're afraid of people discovering the basis of anti-gravity technology? Because all gravitational vectors and all anti-gravitational technology is based off the exact same thing, the thing we call magnetic attraction, the thing that we call electrostatics, the thing that we actually call gravity. These are all anti-spatial vectors. The inverse of that, since everything operates off the right-hand rule, is very, very simple. Our government's not afraid of us finding out about UFOs, which itself doesn't mean anything. Most of these are terrestrial craft made by our own military. They're not afraid of kinetic technology. They're afraid of free energy technology. Third world countries could launch propulsion satellites and space station modules. Over 60% of the global economy would collapse if free energy technology got out there. People think that us and the government are worried about plutonium or uranium cores dropping out of the sky from low Earth orbit trajectories, parabolas launched from the other side of the world, from Russia, and that would be the end of the end. The end of the end, from the perspective of the people that control you and me, is free energy technology. They'd absolutely lose control. With a free energy module, Captain Goober in the middle of Bumblescum, Idaho, or Kentucky, could launch himself. He might not be able to return. He could still launch himself into space if free energy technology got out. You're talking about ion propulsion. With the free energy technology, all you need is an ion propulsion drive and airtight seal, a shell of a car. With free energy technology, anybody could launch themselves, and getting back would be the problem. You need re-entry, heat deflection and whatnot, but anybody could launch their own satellite into space. Launch something into space. They can't have that. They can't lose control. Electric cars I despise electric cars. I despise them because the technology that they use for regeneration is extremely slow and comes from a nuclear or a coal-fired plant. The reason why electric cars are the future, and they want it, is because the power source for them would be free energy based. And then free energy technology of electric vehicles would be already in place. The only thing that would change is the battery technology. The new battery technologies would be titanium-based batteries, which they could be recharged to 100% in like 80% less time, and they're guaranteed to last something like 70 to 80 years. Infinitely superior to current lithium technology. So, and that technology is already a known entity. Producing them cheaply is another matter, but that's just a few years away. The real future for that, of course, is what's going to actually recharge them. People think the secret of life is water, and I've said that many millions of times, and it is, you know, for consciousness and life to exist. But the secret of maintaining life is not water, really, than it is power. There's water all over the globe, yet a lot of people, you know, get dysentery and whatnot because they don't have access to water purification. That would all be free. The power to power hospitals and technology and remote MRI machines in the middle of nowhere, CAT scans, all of that would, those issues associated with same would vanish overnight. Human survival rate would skyrocket, and the powers that be don't want that to happen. With free energy, you and I could run anything at full power 24/7. The only issue would be maintenance and lubrication for the machines that are running 24/7. Recycling. Current recycling issues are that it takes like 10 units of energy to recycle something versus 1 unit to actually produce it. People are like, I recycle, that's good for you. You know that when you stick it in that recycling bin, depending on where you live, like most of it goes directly to the dump. And the reason being is the cost of energy. It's the cost of recycling. Well, it's 1,000,000 times cheaper to produce it than it is to recycle it. Why would I recycle it? I'm just going to make another one. Water filtration, mechanization. Do you know how much diesel fuel it takes to run the enormous farm machinery that harvests and plants and fertilizes food on 1,000+ acre farms? What is that? There's a cost of fertilizer too, of course, but what's the total cost like a 1,000-acre farm? It depends on the type of crop you're harvesting. 60 to 70% of the cost. Fertilizer right now is incredibly high, but most of the costs are due to the harvesters and the diesel that they run off of. This means that we could reduce the cost of all mass-produced food by a minimum of 50, 60, 70%, which would also, too, help life across the globe. They would lose control. They would rather parade the powers that be, a living alien on live TV, and let us talk about it for 5, 10, 15 years and the implications thereof, then let any human being get close to or copy the plans for a free energy device. The people that supposedly have created SAME, all of a sudden, for some odd reason, they just vanished. Or there was an untimely ending of the existence of SAME. Like, oh, it's too bad that happened. You know, he was about to tell the whole world. Stanley Meyer, a few others. Here's something else that nobody talks about, nobody thinks about. There is no fuels that... Let's just talk about the anti-gravity technology, because it's all anybody ever talks about. Great, wonderful. Say everybody gets that information. There is no fuel on this earth, none. Not nuclear, certainly not coal, not diesel. There is no fuel on this earth or fuel cell that you could think of that would have enough energy to power such a craft for more than a few minutes. The amount of energy required is astronomical. If you have to load 95% of the craft with fuel and you only get a few minutes of flight, it's like, well, great, we got anti-gravity, but it's absolutely useless. What do you mean it's useless? Anti-gravity, people have been talking about it now for hundreds of years. Yeah, we got it, but needs a totally different type of power source. It's a power source with no input. It's a power source with a temporal variable, just as an AC generator is. As I've said a million times, an AC generator doesn't generate power. It manifests power. There is no conversion between kinetic input on wind, like wind farms, hydroelectric. Solar is different. Solar is a direct energy conversion. Wind, hydroelectric, coal, there is no conversion of kinetic. There's absolutely no conversion to kinetic. All so-called AC generators, I've said a million times, is an arch form. It's an inside-out magnet, magnetic field on the inside, dielectric on the outside. You introduce a temporal variable, change with respect to time, and as Oliver Heaviside referred to it, a great deal of churning up of the ether, and he was referring to the generators at the Niagara Falls power generation plant. The beautiful attribute of anti-gravity is that it isolates the occupants and the craft itself from forward momentum. So you can actually change vectors at extreme high speeds. Anybody else, they'd be splattered on the inside of the vessel. Wonderful attribute about that is it isolates you from the rest of the universe as far as matter and the momentum associated with same. Because you very well know, you hit the brakes really fast, you have a forward momentum because you're completely connected to all the mass in your surroundings. Momentum is grounded out in the very medium that it's isolated from due to the field around said craft. Because everything operates off of the right-hand rule. Time dilation. This is something else. There's a few people talk about this, but not like this. They have in a roundabout way. Is that when we first broke the sound barrier, we figured out very quickly that you actually have to have a swept wing design to get around the shock wave of same. Well, swept wing actually eliminates out the shock interference at the sound barrier. Well, a saucer shape, for example, and it doesn't have to be saucer shaped, but the occupants and the craft itself has to be the inside curve of the vector of travel. The saucer shape actually eliminates out the shock interference of matter degradation posterior to the vector of travel. The shock wave also, too, of time is a mass drag against the vector of acceleration of said craft. Possible forward travel vector dilation is like falling into a black hole where time actually nulls out. Time, of course, as I've said a million times, is only a measure of mass that's an effect on matter. Such beings, however, say they left planet X and they wanted to explore the galaxy, including, ignorant little human beings on the planet Earth, and it would take X period of time to arrive. Such beings would be isolated in time. They'd be actually stranded in time also, but isolated in time against their own society. I don't know what the vector of time dilation would be, but it could be on an order of 0 to whatever. The matter itself can't travel any faster than some theoretical of 75 or 85% to c, which is not a speed. Light is not a speed, it's the rate of induction of hysteresis of the medium, or as Nikola Tesla correctly referred to it as the ratio between elasticity and density of the medium, that being the ether. Free energy destroys all control. They would much rather us figure out anti-gravity. They would rather parade around genuine aliens or create AI, probably much more likely is create AI videos of gray aliens for us to gawk at and talk about for 5 to 10 years. Wow, we got the first real footage, even the government confirmed it's real, of gray aliens in the woods, venturing outside of their capsule, exploring the flora and the fauna of our planet Earth. Let's talk about it and create science fiction movies for the next 5 to 10 years about this fact and speculate about the aliens. And somebody in the very, 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 very deep state of the government is like, shoo, shoo. It's like, sir, now they know about aliens. Like, shoo, yeah, but now they're not asking any questions about free energy devices that power these craft. I laugh at this, but it amazes me that almost nobody, there might be a handful of people out there, maybe I've not known more than one, there might be a handful, but nobody talks about this. What are the implications of free energy? The implications of anti-gravity are extremely substantial, but once again, there is no fuel that you can dream of between your ears, whether it be nuclear or any type of fuel, it would take up 95% of the craft, and the craft would only fly for a handful of minutes. The only thing that makes these things feasible is a free energy device. But the implications of free energy are bottomless. I mean, genuine lightsabers. All the limitations of 90% of the world's problems today, roughly 90% of the world's problems, is energy concerns. You remove that, you remove all of the things we were worried about before, but importantly, they lose control. 60% of the economy would collapse. 60%, it can't be that high. Oh no, it would be 60% or more. You call up immediately your utility company, you'd cut off service. You wouldn't need, you'd never need gasoline again. The ties that bind you to the shackles of servitude, to our various overlords, the GOVT, are tied 100% or nearly 100% to energy. And that's not my opinion. I mean, that's a fact. This is the great secret they don't want you to know. It's not aliens. It's not anti-gravity. It's not the hidden secrets that Stanley Kubrick filmed that on a sound stage. Remember when NASA is like the head of NASA or the second head of NASA? Someone, this happened like a year or so ago. They asked him, says, well, we haven't been back to the moon yet. It's been 60-some years. These are his exact words. This is real. I forget his name. He's an older, bolder guy with glasses. We haven't gone back to the moon because we simply don't have the technology anymore. Those are his exact words. And so they had it back in the late 60s, but they don't have it in the year 2025. Oh, that's real, by the way. I forget his name. I've seen that video many, many, many times. I haven't been back to the moon lately, sir. We simply don't have that technology anymore. That was the real answer from the first or second head of NASA. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but if I'm lying, I'm dying on that one. I had this argument, and nobody could come back at me in live stream. We've had it several times. And I said, listen, you can't think of, if we had anti-gravity technology right now, it requires an enormous amount of power. You can't tell me a single energy source that would power it, that you know of. And I said, here's another fact. And people were arguing, but nobody had anything intelligent to say, not my opinion. They didn't. I said, an AC generator doesn't generate anything. Generations where you have more than one thing, kind of like milk and eggs and cream and flour, whatever it takes to make a cake. You combine these four things, you mix them, and you make a cake, right? You're generating something from something else. This is converted, raw brass is converted into this buckle. Brass is composed of copper and yada yada. So you use something to generate something else. An AC generator, it's not literally magic, of course, but an AC generator is kind of like a Ouija board. When you focus, it's a certain thing. When you focus on it, things happen. Not good things. AC generator is a portal where from which, due to a temporal variable and the fact that it is an arch form, that's all really an AC generator it is. It's an arch form, and it has a temporal component added to it. And the temporal component is generated from the kinetic input, whether they be falling water or steam generated from nuclear or a wind turbine. Because there's no conversion from the movement of wind into the generation of electricity. There's nobody on earth that they all say the same things. Wind generator, wind power, electricity generator from wind. From wind. Excuse me, sir. The movement of wind, it does not in any way, shape, or form get converted to electricity. Well, sure it is. That's what a wind generator does. That's that power cell that sits on top, and it's got a gigantic propeller on the front of it, and the wind turns it. So yeah, the wind turns it, but there is no conversion of any form of kinetics, be it blowing wind or steam or falling water, into electricity. The only thing we're doing is using that kinetic input, and that kinetic input's not being transformed in any way. Kinetic what? Movement of something. Well, the propeller blades are moving, but that's turning in arch form, which generates a temporal variable. But there's no transference between kinetic to temporal variable. You turn something with respect to time, and that respect to time in the arch form of an AC generator manifests electricity. But there's no generation that occurs there. This revelation by me many years ago, even though prior to that I'd said that free energy was not possible. And then I feel bad towards myself, and that I was not only wrong, I was 100% wrong. It's like, well, first ask ourselves the question about a so-called AC generator, which doesn't generate anything. That being the case, and it is 100% undeniable, and I've asked thousands of people, I said, prove me wrong. There's no conversion between wind or steam or falling water into electricity. None. Not the motion itself, not the kinetics thereof. It's not. You can't say that there is. And you're certainly not going to tell me I don't know how an AC generator works. I've taken countless ones apart over decades. There's no conversion there. Nor is there generation of something. Generation requires more than one constituent, and you're generating something out of something else. Like copper and other alloys, metals are used to generate this buckle. Anyway, that's their big secret, is free energy. It's not little aliens, it's not anti-gravity technology, it's not Stanley Kubrick and men pouncing on a stage in wherever that stage was. I recently saw a photo, and it's the exact same 100% background as, I won't say which Apollo mission, and it's in Greenland? I forget where it is. It's in Greenland, but there's this little tiny lumpy mashed potato looking mountain range in the back, and all the rocks are the same in the foreground and the background's identical. It's like, oh, that's where that was made. Someplace in Greenland. That's the stuff they don't mind us knowing about, but they don't want us knowing about the schematics for free energy, because that would upend civilization in a good way. But all the limitations of lightsabers and harvesting food and on and on and on, it would just, all the cards in the card deck would just fall apart. And that's not my opinion, that's a fact. Anyway, check out my Substack. I have a lot of free articles there for you to check out. I hope you enjoy them. Lux e Veritas. If you're interested in this bag or me making a belt for you, and they're all handmade by me, just let me know and send me an email. That's in the description below. Okay? Lux e Veritas.